What is it, Sandeep, that took you to look at this lack of safety in the Indian industrial sector, and that too in the automobile sector, and that too in Gurgaon?
Yeah. So what happened was that I was traveling to India often after I started my social sector life in 2013. And we came across a news item that 20 workers a day lose their fingers just in Gurgaon. I thought it was just, noise. But Supriya Sharma in Scroll had written the article. She's credible. I met her and we interviewed some people and we figured it was true, right? So three of my batchmates got together and we said, let's improve safety. These accidents shouldn't happen. But it was a very difficult subject. None of us three batchmates were from labor. And labor is a very, very, challenging area, underlooked area, not well covered, as you know more than I do. Um, and we pivoted and we decided to help these injured workers with their healthcare and compensation from ESIC, Employees State Insurance Corporation. And we decided we'll learn from it, right? So we opened our first worker assistance center in December 16 in Manesar, because that's where the article was written about. That's from where the article came. And we started finding these workers left, right, and center. So we just did that for a couple of years. Just talked to lots of them, helped them through the process, understood what their lives, etc. And there were some insights that came out. And my kind of background, we were very analytical about it. We started capturing that qualitative and quantitative data into an IT system right away, right? And what we found was that as we reached 1,000 workers we had assisted, which was sometime in 2018-19, right? That 80% of them were getting injured with the crush injuries, which was our focus, hands cut from auto sector supply chain. So it was helping crushed injury workers, majority of whom were from auto sector supply chain, that led us to auto sector. It was an organic, insight-driven, evidence-driven decision, right? Once we got into auto sector and started understanding the supply chains, we started going out into those supply chains. So the second center we opened in Faridabad, same and worse problem. Then we went to Pune, same problem. Then we opened a third center in Gurgaon, fifth center in Chakan in Pune. So we are expanding into auto sector hubs. We are just recruited somebody in Chennai to open the next center there because, of course, Tamil Nadu is a large auto sector hub. The one after that will be Karnataka, then Gujarat, and we'll stop with centers in these 5 states. This covers 80-90%.
Are you saying this is uniformly across the country?
We have done many surveys outside. What we do is not surveys. We actually help these workers. We know them. Our data is not survey driven. We know these workers, right? We know their lives. But we have gone out to Uttarakhand. We have gone out to Rudrapur. We have gone out to Gujarat and Chennai and Karnataka on survey basis, and there are similar stories everywhere. And the reason for that is auto sector uses a lot of metal forming machines because they need those components, metal components. Those metal components are made in a machine called power press. Power press is 65% of our crush injuries in auto sector. So there is a engineering reason for why these things are happening in auto sector.
Now, this is uniformly across India, but it's not uniformly across the world.
Metal forming in most countries in developing emerging markets leads to similar issues, but there is no data available to compare. Everywhere data is underreported, right? So in India, to give you an idea of underreporting, Haryana state has been reporting for 20-30 years, 50 accidents a year. We now, with our 6 outreach executives only, and these are junior guys who go out in the community and stuff, get more than 1,000 a year. That's a scale of underreporting that only our data shows. God knows what the reality is out there.
The reality is out there.
50 versus 1,000.
Now, you set out to wanting to help these people, right? Now, you were wanting to help them through what they get the employee state insurance system. So in effect, you are helping them through the official system. Was there no recognition of this at all in the official system of the number of people that you were being able to take?
No.
For relief?
No. I mean, people know, that things are worse than the data. People know that. I think everybody's intelligent enough for that and smart enough for that. People did not know the extent of it. I think one of our big wins is the fact that we are robustly reporting this data, not based on surveys, but real workers who get into ESIC system to get their injuries and sicknesses treated. It's real stuff, right? It's not a survey, somebody saying I have and I don't have, right? The extent of it, that it is thousands of workers in auto sector across the country every year. Our reports are showing year after year consistently. So it's not even a one-off flash in the pan data. Every year the data is broadly similar with the trend for 7 years. So it's a well-established trend now.
Now, your the data, or let's say the number of injured workers, is it, it it's not increasing. Is it
So,
decreasing?
no, it's a great question. So just as a context of that, you see, so once we started helping these workers and got these insights, then we started on building our advocacy on top of this pillar one of operational activity. What does our advocacy do? We have a pillar of safety, workplace safety advocacy. We have a pillar of ESIC, quality improvement of services advocacy, and we have an empowerment pillar of communication in the Facebook page, in the YouTube channel and such, right? So in the pillar of safety, we go to top 10 brands in the country and say, you have a problem. It's your responsibility. You have the profits, you have the power, you have the influence over the government. You definitely influence the implementation of those policies on the ground through corrupt and non-corrupt means, right? And you have the technical expertise and you have a moral and ethical responsibility on top of that as per all global trends. ESGs of the world and India's national guidelines of responsible business conduct. So you have to top 10 brands. So those top 10 brands have been gradually one by one engaging with us. It's taken us 3 years, but now all of them are engaging with us, right? So we come with 2 reports. Crushed, which you have reported. Crushed is a bottom-up evidence of data of accidents, their nature, the kind of workers, migrants, 90%, young, 60% below 30 years, 70% contract, all that stuff. By brand, how many accidents Maruti, Hero, Honda, Eicher, Ashok Leyland, Mahindra, Bajaj, Tata, top 10 brands. And we started after 2 years of starting Crushed in 19. In 2021, we started another report called Safety Niti because we realized that the policies are not good enough for supply chain, the brand's policies. So we started tracking and rating and ranking those policies. So we rank those brands, right? That's called Safety Niti. Media does not pick up Safety Niti because it doesn't have gory stories. It is policy. It's a bit intellectual piece of work, right? So that they don't cover too much. Like you said, we are solution centric. One of our first value is worker centricity. Second value is solution centricity. We will come to you with a problem, but with a solution, right? So we make these recommendations to them. Now, based on those recommendations, these top 10 brands have started improving their policy framework. So good on them, right? So for example, supplier code of conduct, which is a critical document to improve safety in supply chain. 2 people had when we started. Now 9 have, right? Human rights policies they didn't have, it was bad, it wasn't in public domain. Now they all have in public domain. So they're accountable to it. And so on and so forth. There are some 12 things that we ask them. Similarly, we have implementation recommendations of tier 2 audits to begin with. So Maruti started reporting on tier 2 audits. Bajaj started reporting on tier 2 audits. We've created a platform with industrial safety and health, Maruti, Hero, Honda, and Safe in India. And that has done 30 audits of tier 2 audits, 80% failed. So some lessons came out of that. So I can go on, right? So now what has come out of this, back to your question, as a result of all this, in Haryana where we started, finally the accidents started dropping in 2022, right? In 4 quarters in 2022, and 4 quarters in 2023, 8 quarters in a row, the accidents came down in Haryana, where we started. So it's taken a few years, right? We started really in 19. So 3 years later. 24, they went up again a little bit. But according to industry, it's because of growth. 25, right now, we haven't published the data, it'll come out. It's coming down right now again. We'll see what comes out. But we had told the brands that until we see 3 years of consistent reduction, we will not believe this is sustained. So it didn't happen for 3 years.
Also, as your number of offices increases, as your centers increase, the overall number must be much higher, I presume.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we put it out there that our numbers are also increasing for our centers. But despite increasing centers in Haryana, our numbers came down for 8 quarters.
Okay. Now, It's made no difference whether it's the South or it's, the wild North. The level of industrialization is different, and the level of education, empowerment, etc., in the South is higher. But when it comes to these kind of accidents, it has made no difference.
Don't know. Okay. Because our centers are in Haryana and Maharashtra right now. Chennai, we will know in 2 years' time. We are just setting it up. Anecdotal evidence is, and I've lived in Chennai for 5 years.
Between Pune.
Good question. So we were surprised that Maharashtra was as bad as Haryana, right? In fact, in some places things better, some things worse. So we measure many things. We measure, for example, how many average fingers are lost in these accidents. So it's broadly 2 in both places. Average fingers lost on power press is 2 in an accident in both places. We measure ESIC compliance because we have found a correlation between how compliant a factory is with ESIC and the accidents. It sort of makes sense. It's now we have proven we have a correlation, not causality, which says that the more unprofessional they are about ESIC compliance, they're also unprofessional about safety standards. So they are worse off, right? Now, ESIC compliance in some areas is worse in Maharashtra in the area we are in. We are in Mohan Nagar and Chakan now, right? Which surprised us. We thought Maharashtra will be better in everything. Number of accidents reported, I told you 50 and 1,000 here. That ratio is smaller in Maharashtra. They're reporting more. They're more compliant about reporting than Haryana. So it's a mixed bag. But what we expected when we go in there was Maharashtra will be better than Haryana. It's not uniformly better.
You've been dealing, look, the Indian economy has been driven by construction sector. It's been driven by the automobile sector, right? It's basically were identified as drivers to take up growth, right? And especially in the automobile sector, you've had the whole issue of brands, right? Car, it's not just a car, it's a brand, and the brand comes with so much more. Now, when you approach a company, and now we are assuming that these are modern companies taking the Indian economy forward, right? So they must be run by extremely modern managements. Right? So when you approach a company with this kind of data, what level of access are you given?
What level of access?
Are you given? Who do you talk to in the management?
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's a mix. There's a whole range from chairman to head of safety. Okay, there's a mix. So when we started, Mr. R.C. Bhargava wrote back to us right away on our first report, promising action. And they did. For 3 years, they did some great work, right? So that is one extreme. The other end of the extreme, I will not mention the brands, where they put in front of us their IR people, industrial relations people, instead of really as head of supply chain or a director who's in charge of ESG, right? So there's a whole mix. But what I would say is that almost every brand has done something or the other in line with these requirements. And there's a spectrum in safety need to rate and rank them accordingly. So one trend, for example, is the Japanese companies on an average have a better response than non-Japanese companies, sadly so. But that is a fact, right? The more Indian ownership a company has, the worse it is, despite being global brands. That's another thing, sadly true. The third thing that in terms of, access is, you see now, SEBI requires them to do a report called BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report. That requires reporting of lots of ESG things, including supply chain, but supply chain doesn't get reported as well. Now, we are doing a project in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs where 50 listed top auto sector companies, BRSR is being analyzed by us together, and the report will come out later this year. Now, in their auto sector is engaged, and there is an access to auto sector, amongst many things. Mr. Santosh Gangwar, who was the first labor minister when we came in, had actually called the industry in, along with the government bodies, to work on our report and come up with solutions. So there's engagement at that level that happened at that time. But it goes on and off. Every it sort of switches and depends very much then on the people. Sometimes more conscientious people come in. There are people like us. They come in, somebody really wants to do something. As long as they're in job, they do something. Then they go, somebody is not as conscientious comes in, things drift, right? So it
So
keeps changing.
in the equation between between the regulator, which in this case the government, and the management, it would appear to me that the management has the upper hand because the regulator, despite knowing all this is happening, is not able to take any action.
So it's a great point because, I come from industry, from business. So it comes from my biases, but also what I've seen of the politics in the last 20 years, right? Right now, worldwide, business has an upper hand. So whether it's tech or it's auto sector, the business is ahead of the government. Government is always trying to catch up, right? And that's just what's happening everywhere, right? So, like I said, the government, even when they make regulations in India, it's not the law is there, the order is not there, right? It's an old story, right? Now, who decides who will run that order well? Unless the business wants to run with some conscientiousness, the governments are, especially in our country, are really not that powerful. On the other hand, they are also making their laws and regulations which are more business friendly as opposed to labor friendly. So, for example, in the labor codes, which are still not law and not which are still not implemented, right? There are some labor friendly provisions. For example, workers should be there should be an annual medical test of theirs. Nobody's doing it. But the inspector in the government department, he's already operating like an inspector come facilitator he doesn't have teeth anymore to do audits the way they used to do. No surprise audits can be done. They are consultants in effect. That part of the thing has become operational. The daily working of 12 hours, which is in the labor codes, which previously was 8 hours with a cap of 48 hours, right? Now the 12 hours has become the norm and acceptable, and nobody can challenge anybody on 12 hours because it's become the norm because in the labor codes, that's fine. The cap, nobody's monitoring. Overtime should be paid twice has been reinforced, but nobody's monitoring. So the way the government is going is it's going more business friendly, and rightly so. They need to develop business, but the balance to be struck with their own requirements from the business of what needs to be done for the labor should also be then reinforced, and that's not happening. So
You know,
business takes upper hand.
if you were to take any of the managements of these companies, these car companies you deal with, uh, a huge amount of money rides on those salaries. The background of all these people is of a very high level of basic education, and they've
Sure,
got some of the best institutions in this country.
sure, sure.
How come I'm asking as someone who uh, is would like to feel surprised by this? How come they can't see this? How come they don't act?
This is to me.
How come a guy drawing a crore of salary uh, mm, does not know what his supply chain is doing? What is the answer?
You see, you're hit on a philosophical issue here, right? Honestly, right? I mean, I often
No,
speak to.
I'm asking an even more blunt question here. Um, do these people have blood on their hands?
Of course they do. Frankly, but all of us have.
No,
See,
that's not answering the question.
uh,
They run those companies, they run those managements, they access those supply chains. There are people losing on an average 2 fingers on machines that need to be monitored better. It's all well known, but no one does anything. Do they have blood on their hands?
there have been articles written about blood on the hands and cars are painted in blood. The way I look at this issue is they are definitely responsible. Okay. Um, Unfortunately, people like professionals sitting there in their jobs are slaves to their job descriptions. And those job descriptions have only one major line in that, which is profit. Everything else is missing in terms of human or environmental impact. Is ESG really driving anybody's behavior on a day-to-day basis ahead of supply chain? The reality of auto sector, if you want to have blunt answer, and this I say publicly, we have said it in the last crush report also in the forum, and one of the auto sector guys, ex retired person sat and said some of these things. The audits that happen by the supply chain are focused around quality, delivery, and cost. It does not include safety or working conditions. So, are they responsible for it? They absolutely must be. They are ignoring it. As a result, they are responsible. Second, let me just say. Second, the supply chains are huge and powerful, but they are also often corrupt. And it's not just auto sector. Supply procurement departments are corrupt in lots of places in the world. How do you expect a corrupt department, which is understood by the management, with some corruption, expect to do things like workplace safety? Right? I mean, how does it philosophically go together? Right? It doesn't. So according to me, do they understand the problem? They can't say they don't understand the problem anymore. We have been telling them for 8 years now, 6 years now. Is there? They've accepted the reports. So are they responsible for not solving it? Of course they are.
Okay, so now if I might take you to another layer of the system, these are all publicly held companies.
Apart from one now, Hyundai.
Oh, so the majority of them are publicly held. If they're not publicly held in this country, they're publicly held somewhere.
Correct.
Skoda is not a private company. Okay. They have directors. They have independent directors. Have you ever had to engage with their board? Have you ever tried to engage with their boards, with their independent directors to say, why does your company do this?
Yes. So twice a year when we do these reports, we write letters to the chairman, the CEOs, and the directors. Okay. We're sending them the report and highlighting what they have done well and what they need to do and what they are not doing. We also formally and informally try speaking to some of these directors that we have access to. Okay. Not just directors of public listed companies. We have also from last year, after 5 years of escalating within the company, finally we started writing last year for the first time to the investors in these companies.
I was just about to come to the investors.
And,
So
and the ESG auditors
that's
of
right.
these
Exactly.
companies.
Yeah.
Right?
I was coming
So
to
now,
categories. Now, what happens here? They're not bothered.
I mean, I can't say whether internally they don't bother or not, but we are not seeing action. That I can assure you. Action, there are 2 or 3 of these in the last 6 months that we have written letters who have started responding to us. So, for example, ICICI Lombard included our data in their Indian Manufacturing Risk Index. And that's the kind of ecosystem change you want to bring gradually. That this becomes part of the system and it's not people dependent. It's part of the system of monitoring and reporting. And it becomes transparent and people start acting on it. For the other example, and it's a big one, right, from the government. This year, for the first time, Indian Economic Survey has our data and our recommendations in the economic survey saying worker safety is good for business and get away from jugaad. Let's professionalize. Now, I'm saying that auto sector brands are not only responsible for reducing accidents because of all the gory, unnecessary damage to people and their families and dignity, right? But auto sector is 1/3 of Indian manufacturing GDP. Depending upon who you speak to, it's 1 crore to 3 crore people employed in it. Add the families, it's 5 to 10% of India, which is dependent on it in one way or the other. Any improvement in these manufacturing professionalisms, quality, working conditions can lead India forward. And this is important for India, and brands are responsible for that. Ultimately, they're making the money from India.
Yeah.
Right? We have not gone by design to international owners or investors. We are trying to keep Indian human rights issue within India.
Now, how many years did you say it's taken? 16 years? How many years of taking up this issue? How many years has it been?
So, no, so we picked up safety in 2019.
2009.
Out of that, 1.5 years went away in COVID. So,
okay. And you started looking at this much earlier than that, right?
16.
To 2016. And 2019 you start. So it's been now about 8 years, roughly.
8 years of seeing the problem and 6 years, including COVID, of trying to solve the problem.
Did you reach out to um, politicians individually? Did you reach out to empowered committees in Parliament? Was there any engagement with these people?
We have done with ministries and their departments. We have not gone out to politicians. Um, and we would love to reach out to the right politician who wants to take it up, as long as they're effective and they just don't make noise out of it for their own personal gains. Because this is long-term game. Umesh, one thing is very clear in my mind. This problem has existed forever. It's not new. It's not created now. It's been there for 20 years, 30 years at least, that we can see, we have seen, right? It's an old problem. Everybody's party to this, right? And therefore, and this is another, it'll take another 30 years. This is a generational change that's going to happen, right? So there is no silver bullet in this as far as we can see, and we have lots of advisors of all kinds. No, there is no silver bullet. Unions in India are now weak and ineffective, and it's their job really. But then, they can't do it, right? They can't represent it. ILO is doing what it can, but not a lot in India, right? So you're left with a government which is seeing this as an opportunity for the country, for GDP, for employment, for auto sector growth. That's the opportunity they have to look at from the point of view. Otherwise, the argument is people are queuing up for jobs all the time anyway.
Yeah.
But it is withholding India back. I mean, how can you maim a skilled worker, 25% of whom then go back to villages underemployed or unemployed? The remaining then get lower salaries, or their lives are compromised for the rest of their lives. And they have issues. We have Shyam. There's a worker called Shyam. He stopped singing. He got so depressed. He stopped singing. He was a singer. He liked singing. The young man doesn't sing anymore, right? All sorts, right? We are making. What are we doing to our people? How will we improve employment? How will we, take GDP forward if they can't consume? All those arguments apply.
But its fundamental problem is like this.
Right.
One of our observations as journalists has been the demise of the trade union movement. Is this one of the reasons why worker safety suffers? I mean, you don't have a truly independent, active, powerful trade union movement.
Without doubt. Without doubt. You see, my limited experience, and like I said, I'm a business guy who's come this side, and I'm a learner still I'm not an expert of labor by any stretch of imagination. But we do have some amazing advisors who educate me a lot. What I've learned is that there is no doubt that empowerment of workers through unions empowers them not just in wages, which is normally what unions pick up, but it empowers them to demand their rights as a collective. And therefore, if in a factory, and there is a factory in Faridabad right now, which we know has at least 50 injuries every year, 50 workers lose their fingers every year. Everybody in Faridabad knows what this factory is. I cannot name it. Okay. You call up everybody in ESIC if you have any contacts in Faridabad and say, किस factory सबसे ज़्यादा accident आते हैं? They'll tell you a name. Every year 50 names. Somebody will even say 100. It's supplied to one of the big brands. Right? It just carries on.
See, I've got one or two more questions, but I have an observation.
Sorry, I didn't answer it properly. If there was an active union in that factory,
That's right.
It couldn't have carried on because the workers would have raised the issue of the unions. It would have had a safety committee, which it doesn't have.
So actually today, a lot of the worker rights, and that too, say in this particular instance of the automobile industry, and that too in a space where people are losing their limbs, which is irreversible, is really dependent on a few well-meaning people running an NGO. It does not, whatever you call yourself an NGO, which is excellent, but it doesn't have government. It doesn't have a labor union. It doesn't have political people involved. So that's a terrible story. Now, the observation I was going to make is that same thing is happening in the construction industry. If you flip through our magazine in the past, I was writing something called Monitor. It just looks at the story, the the news reports of what happens to workers. Just the news report, nothing else. Obviously not the real picture, but just the news report. In Falana state, Falana city, whatever, this paper reported this one died, that one died, right? And you know, you have a picture of an industry. You say, what the hell's going on? And then the next stage is, where do these guys come from? They all come from villages, and so therefore they're not empowered. They're people without any heft in a city. Uh, you know, the automobile industry probably going to change with electric. And does that make it safer in
Yeah,
on the factory floor?
it does. It does. From whatever we know, electric cars and automobiles have far fewer components. And fewer components would mean shorter, simpler supply chains, relatively modern factories because new stuff is going to come out. So fewer components plus modernization will lead to reduction in such accidents. However, my belief is that there are two issues that still need to be resolved, although that may happen over a period of time automatically. One, internal combustion engines are here to stay for the very long time in India. Even in the UK, the conversion to electric is after 15 years of subsidizing is like 5%. Right? So India will have mass with its growth. I see my lifetime is going to be even bigger, not smaller, irrespective of electric coming in. Right? Two, the bigger picture is the same. If we have not been able to professionalize with this kind of mindset our manufacturing, which results in such accidents, we are going to be held back in every other manufacturing, make in India or electrics. Because that's how people are thinking. That's how the business is thinking, cutting corners in jugaad instead of creating better factories, which automatically have more professional setup. In fact, Maruti people, Mr. A.S. Raju, Mr. I.V. Rao, these are stalwarts of Maruti Group, right? I.V. Rao is ex-chief engineer of Maruti. A.S. Raju is head of supply chain of Maruti, both retired now. They both said at our events that a safer factory is a sign of a more professional management that we need in our supply chain for business, for quality, for reliability. There was an accident. There was a fire in Rewari in a factory called. The name will come to me in a minute. 60 workers burned, 19 died. Heroes supplier is public, so I'm saying you. We have put written blogs on it, right? 19 workers died. Why? There was a buffing shop where they're buffing aluminium or some metal that got accumulated in the exhaust pipe, which is meant to be cleaned once a week. They never cleaned it. So it blasted with a spark. So who lost? Of course, 60 families got destroyed, or 19 absolutely destroyed with deaths, right? But production, quality, it was election time, so the government asked them to pay lakhs of rupees. They distributed a few crores, government and them, right? We wrote to hero, international guys wrote to hero, pressure, legal cost, I'm sure corruption to pay off people. How are these guys going to go forward? All they have to do is clean it once a week. That's not even expensive. It's not even about cost. I believe, and it's only a belief, that in our low-hanging fruit situation and such a bad baseline that we have, 1/3 of accidents can be stopped profit accretively. It will actually help you in reducing those accidents in profits. Last 1/3 will be expensive, European style. Forget that time for the time being. But you are not even thinking of that. This is an opportunity for business to professionalize.
Um, it's a very sad situation. And one last final question to you. This was just an exchange, but I have one last question. Where do you propose to take Safe in India? What do you propose to do forward?
So, see, there are 3-4 strands where we are taking it, and they are all part of the same ecosystem of empowering workers and making their lives better. We are focused on auto sector, but given the importance of auto sector, this has an halo effect on rest of the manufacturing, and that's why the economic survey. So where do we want to take it operationally is one thing, but what impact it has is another thing. Operationally, we will expand into auto sector hubs. We'll help, right now helping 3,000, 4,000 workers a year, will help 10,000 workers a year, but get them compensation, get them healthcare, get their lives better, get them back into a stable life with compensations and healthcare from ESIC. But the bigger picture is for crores of workers, auto sector professionalization of supply chain and our contribution to that, we actually can see that it will happen. It'll take time, but we can see it because pieces are moving. Several pieces are moving. There's no silver bullet here. Countries have taken 50 years, we'll also take 30 years, right? So auto sector must become more professional and safer as a result of our work nationally. And that halo effect, given the importance of auto sector generally in manufacturing, will spread outside is our hope, and we feel pretty good about it. Similarly, improving social security of workers through ESIC by improving ESIC systems, where we have a number of, they have accepted 14 of our recommendations until now, and we keep pushing that. Things keep happening there also, right? So improving social security of workers, which is also empowering. A healthier, compensated, according to rights worker is more empowered, right? And finally, the communication piece. So we have 1.5 lakh followers on our Hindi Facebook page. Our Shramikpur Hindi channel we launched last year is starting to fly with views of thousands of people, which didn't used to happen in the past. So empower workers through knowledge of workplace safety in ESIC directly. We are also starting to direct training programs. So as the first experiment, we are going to train 10,000 workers over next 2 years in Haryana on ESIC and workplace safety face to face, backed up with technology. So we're trying to deal with an ecosystem here. There are academics involved with us, economic survey. Bureau of Indian Standards has passed a right standard that we asked them for power press safety, which wasn't there. So we have 100 moving pieces here. So where does Safe in India go? Hopefully, it goes towards creating an ecosystem with Safe in India and its partners of other social sector, government, private sector, individuals, to create this culture of improving working conditions and safety in auto sector supply chain to begin with, around as a halo effect that takes India forward in this direction.
And you think if you succeed, I would assume if you succeed with the auto sector, you also influence other sectors of the economy.
Indirectly, we do, without doubt, because see, workers move from one place to another. Owners are often in different industries. And when 1/3 of manufacturing GDP is doing something, and it is one of the largest, probably the largest, it's bound to influence others around it. They're sitting in the same manufacturing hub. Same HR people, manufacturing people, engineers. So, for example, auditors, if we can get it right, and ESG consultants, if you get ESG consultants to look at the right thing, they will then consult the same thing to every sector. So that's the point about ecosystem. The ecosystem, although we are focused on auto sector for reasons of specialization and pushing one thing with focus.
You can't go all over. You can't go all over.
Can't. I mean, people keep saying go to construction or agriculture, mines, chemicals, can't. यही हो जाए जिंदगी में वो बहुत है.
Great. Well, thank you, Sandeep. It's been lovely talking to you.